I'm pretty sure you've heard the name of Ronnie O'Sullivan.
One more frame is all he needs to be champion.
He's the man widely regarded as the greatest snooker player of all time. Yet he is also considered by many to be the most hated player in the sport. Now, you might be wondering, how does someone so talented become so despised? Well, it's a wild story, and it all starts with a young prodigy who seemed destined for greatness. From the moment Ronnie picked up a cue, it was clear he was something special. At just 10 years old, he was already making century breaks. By 15, he'd turned pro, and at 17, he became the youngest player ever to win a ranking tournament. It seemed like the snooker world had found its new golden boy. But that's not quite how things played out. You see, as Ronnie's talent grew, so did his ego. And that's where the problems began. While most players were grinding it out on the tour, playing every tournament they could, Ronnie started getting selective. The star even said some controversial stuff about the people in higher boards mentioning that. It is probably in the worst place it has ever been. The image of the sport, it's a bit like a pub sport now. According to him, the people managing snooker were not the brightest of all. The troublesome behavior started back in 1996. Ronnie had already become a sensation in the sport. He was at the World Championships, the biggest stage in snooker. Yet instead of making headlines for his play, he landed himself in hot water. Why? He assaulted a press officer. Yeah, you heard that right. The wonder kid of snooker, physically going after a press officer. Ronnie had a 2-year ban and a hefty £30,000 fine. Talk about a rough start to a career. If you're wondering if he learned his lesson from those penalties, you're wrong about it. Fast forward to 2006, and Ronnie was at it again. He was playing against Stephen Hendry in the Maplin Championship quarter-final. Things weren't looking good for him as he was down 4-1. So what did he do? He got up, shook Hendry's hand, and just left. Rooney walked out of the arena and didn't come back. Can you imagine being a fan who paid to watch that match? Well, if you were, you got a free ticket to the next round. Small consolation, I guess. At this point, Ronnie's reputation already had a big question mark on it, and then came another blow. In 2008, he was at the China Open and got knocked out early. During the press conference, he lets loose with some, let's call them, colorful comments. All of this was translated into Chinese during the broadcast. Although he mentioned that he didn't know his mic would catch all that, still, Ronnie was charged with a heavy fine of £21,000, despite evidence from doctors attesting to his fragile mental state. As the years went by, Ronnie's reputation continued to be a mix of brilliance and controversy. His talent on the table was undeniable, racking up title after title. But the controversies didn't stop. It was during a match against Ali Carter in the 2018 World Championship. Ronnie deliberately barged into Carter as he was returning to his seat. The referee had to interfere to stop the matter as it felt like they were about to start a fight. This wasn't just poor sportsmanship anymore. This was outright hostility. This was not just a matter with Ali Carter. Several players had problems with Ronnie, feeling disrespected by his behavior both on and off the table. In 2020, Mark Selby, another top player, broke his silence about how he had felt disrespected while playing at the same table as Ronnie. Selby described instances where O'Sullivan's body language and actions made him feel uncomfortable during matches.
During the match, I felt like he was a little bit disrespectful the way he played. Every time I put him in a snooker, he just got down and hit the balls 100 mile an hour and could have gone anywhere. So,
even the referees weren't safe from Ronnie's wrath. Recently, in the 2022 World Championship final against Judd Trump, he had a heated exchange with referee Olivier Martil. Ronnie insisted Martil was looking for trouble. He even got an official warning for it. It's not just his actions. Even Ronnie's remarks about the young players had also gotten him under the radar. At multiple occasions, he had mentioned that they were not as good for the game, and even said they had slow brains.
Round the table than I do when I'm playing these young players. They look old, the way they, their brains are quite slow. So for me...
Some fans of snooker agreed with his point, saying that he had highlighted a strong point. Still, it was taken as a negative thing by others to be done by such a big player of the industry. Ronnie's disturbing attitude, and all the feuds he got involved in, earned him the badge of the most hated snooker player. But here's the kicker. Despite all this, Ronnie kept winning, and even after all the controversies, he's still the best at the game. He was racking up titles like nobody's business in his career. And that's when the whispers started. People began to suspect that Ronnie was getting preferential treatment from World Snooker, the sport's governing body. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The perception was there, and it only added fuel to the fire. Now, you might be thinking, surely with all this backlash, Ronnie would try to change his ways. But that's not how it played out. Instead, it seemed like Ronnie doubled down. But here's the thing that really got under people's skin. No matter how much controversy Ronnie stirred up, he kept winning. It was like the more people hated him, the better he played. He racked up 7 world championships, more than any other player in the modern era. He became the oldest world champion at 46, and hit more century breaks than anyone else in history. And every time he won, it was like a fresh wound for his critics, because they couldn't deny his talent, but they also couldn't stomach his attitude. It created this bizarre situation where Ronnie was simultaneously the most successful player in the sport and the most hated. The reality is, despite all the controversy and all the hate, Ronnie remains the biggest draw in snooker. Love him or hate him, people tune in to watch him play. They can't look away. It's like he's become this anti-hero of the snooker world, the villain that people love to hate. So, as we look to the future, to the next big tournament, one thing's for sure. All eyes will be on Ronnie O'Sullivan, the most talented player in the sport, yet the most controversial figure in snooker. The man they call the Rocket, and whether you're rooting for him or against him, you can bet it's going to be one hell of a show.